Russ Anber, appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
Now, I've used Rival Gloves quite a few times over the years.
Oh, good.
And I believe that's your company, you set it up.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your background and more about your company?
What would you like to start with?
Well, how did you set it up?
Look, it just happened almost by accident in that, I've been selling equipment since 1985. I had developed two brands in Canada where I was the representative for two new American companies at the time, and I developed those brands in Canada. And then it happened that I was looking at wanting to start my own, and at the same time that I had that vision, I met a manufacturer who was also starting a manufacturing business, and he said he wanted to make gloves. I told him, well, I really don't have enough money to do that, and he said okay, and he went and he left. And he came back the next day and said, I didn't sleep all night. I said, why? He says, because I think you're going to do something good with Rival. He says, I'll take whatever, no minimums. He said, I'll take whatever order you have. I said, okay. And I gave him an order for $2,000, and that's how the company started.
Wow, it started all from there.
Yeah.
And more to yourself, in terms of the work that you've done, I believe you're a very popular cut man. You've worked with Lomachenko, you've worked with Usyk. Can you tell me about some of the fighters you've worked with?
Well, before becoming a cut man, I trained fighters, and I was on the Canadian national team. I've had 4 Olympians, Commonwealth gold medalist, world champion silver medalist, Pan American Games silver medalist, and came to England in 1997 with Otis Grant and fought Ryan Rhodes in Sheffield and won the middleweight title, championship of the world. And I've been training Otis since he was 13 years old. So it was a great achievement to have developed a fighter all the way from grassroots right up to a world title. And I'm very proud of that. That's still to me my proudest achievement, to have been able to do that. From amateurs, kid, to a world championship. And he did it here in the UK as well. Won the title here in the UK on the road. So that's nice. I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of having my career as a trainer. And it's crossed over well into becoming a cut man, because the way that started was that Mark Ramsey wanted me to join up with his team when Jean Pascal turned pro and Antonin Zakari, and he was building his stable. He wanted me not only for a cut man, but for my expertise as a trainer. So I combined both worlds, and that's transcended now into where I am today. So I feel like when I work in a corner with a fighter and with different trainers, that I offer more than just being a cutsman. So I like that.
I'll be honest, I wasn't fully aware of your background as a trainer.
Nobody is, because
I'm not going to lie.
I happened before YouTube existed, so I happened before any of this was. So it's understandable you wouldn't know.
Well, look, last question for today. I don't want to take up too much time. I'm a massive fan of the old school of boxing. I follow a lot of the old-time fighters. How do you think the fighters today compare to, you look at someone like Harry Greb. In 1 year, this guy fought, 37 fights, won them all, and he was taking on the top competition then. The only person today, you've got Canelo, but not that many times, is it?
Look, first, it's a different world. Okay,
yeah.
Let's get that straight right now. You can use Harry Greb as an example, and a lot of people point to Harry Greb, but boy, he might even be greater if we had footage of him. We don't have it. We only have the legend that has lived on, of how great he was. But we do have visuals of Sugar Ray Robinson, and you can see that and how many times they fought. There is footage of Willie Pep fighting. There's footage of Archie Moore. There's footage of those legends that fought. And when you look at boxing today, the first thing that comes to mind is, and I said this to Jamie Conlon the other day, fighters today, not one of them are fighting in the weight class they're supposed to be in. Due to the fact that we have pre-day weigh-ins, sucking water, to come up with ways of sucking your body dry to get your weight down as low as possible, then coming in 20 pounds heavier the next day. This is all something that wasn't done back in the day, and I saw this, and I noticed when I saw Duran in 1980, Duran looked like a 135 pounder. That's what he looked like. He was 135, and he looked like 135.
Yeah.
Now, guys who are fighting at featherweight look like Duran looked when he was 135 pounder. Because
wow.
They have to weigh in the same day back in those days. So that's changed a lot. Nobody's in the weight class they should be in, and you arguably could not have put today's champions, supposedly in the middleweight division, in with the middleweight champion then, because they wouldn't have been able to weigh in on that day. They wouldn't be fighting in middleweight. There's probably a handful of fighters today who are fighting in, or are champions in their weight class, who would be able to stay in that weight class if they had to weigh in the same day. And Lomachenko would be one of them.
That's fascinating.
Golovkin would have been one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, but besides that, none of them.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But I don't want to take
Crawford would have been a junior middleweight or a middleweight. Would never have been a welterweight.
What about with some of these Usyk, like some of these cruiserweights? Do you think cruiserweight is a made-up division, or?
I think cruiserweight fit the bill. I think the 200-pound range was good. From 175 to 200, I think it's good.
Yeah.
Over that, I think Usyk proved that you don't need, there's not, I don't know that there's necessarily a need, but all of a sudden, when Lennox and the Klitschko's came on the scene, they were the first real big guys who could fight. Most of the time when you had big guys, they couldn't fight. They were slow, they were lumbersome, you look at them and say, wow, he's good. But now, guys are emerging, and I think the best example of that is Fury, because of how agile he is and how nimble he is, and he doesn't have, a Greek god's body.
He doesn't,
and yet he has all those slick moves, and he's very relaxed in the ring, and he's a huge man. I think that's really impressive. That's that they can do that. So maybe the time has come that with more people, bigger guys getting involved in the sport, that there is a need for that. But I think that Usyk proved that, when you're a solid 6'3", 225 pounds and you can fight, it's good enough.
I'll say quickly, I don't want to keep you talking too long. In my limited experience as someone who boxes, it's funny, I find bigger guys easier to deal with than smaller guys. Speed, reflexes is what I find problems with.
Of course, everybody does, yeah.
I think what a lot of people are not acknowledging, the thing with some of these big guys, I think people like Ali and Joe Lewis, some of these guys, I think their speed, their foot speed, I think that would have been too much for these big guys.
Might have been.
How many big guys did Joe Lewis knock out? You remember Primo Carnero?
Yeah.
Who else can I think? Buddy Bear?
But you have to think, were they as good as some of the big guys we're talking about?
Probably not. No, not as good as Lennox or.
Definitely not as good as Lennox. So and you could use Larry Holmes as an example of knocking out Cooney, and Cooney could fight. Cooney was a dangerous fighter,
I remember.
And Holmes beat the bigger man. So at the end of the day, especially in the heavyweight division, it's not only about size. Skill is so important. So difficult to compare those eras. But the boxing world is so different now than what it used to be. It's not the same anymore. TV has taken control of it. It's all about who signs with what television network. The right fights aren't being made that should be made. I mean, the fact that we waited so long for Pacquiao and Mayweather is insane. The fact that Spence and Crawford have not fought is insane. And this is just stupid politics. And now guys are making so much money even before they become champion. It's how do you get them to fight real fights when they can make money fighting nothing fights?
They don't want to.
They don't want to. It's a very different game.
And you wouldn't see this in any other sport, where every year the best take on the best in other sports. At the end of the season, you know who the best is. But boxing is the only sport where, I want a certain size ring, because I want this, I want that.
We don't demand it in this sport, It's not demanded. That's the problem. Like I said, all the television networks care about their own fighters and who they've got. And they don't care about another guy who's with another network. They don't care. It doesn't matter if it's good for boxing. They can sell tickets with the guy they have. They can promote the guy they have. They don't care about the other guy. They don't want to help the other promoter. They're not doing it for the good of boxing. The one thing, if I had to pick out one thing that I would like to see changed in the world of boxing now, especially with the amount of money that is thrown around in this game now, and when you're giving fighters and offering fighters millions and millions of dollars in step-aside money, what I think is all these promoters that are making these big, and the promoters at the high level, while they're spending a lot, they're making a lot of money and they have a lot of TV revenue coming in. Something should be done to be setting up some kind of a fund for fighters who, should they be injured or should something happen to them, or later on in life, that they have something, a fund that can take care of them. And that's one thing that everything boxing has done for people, we have not given back and helped the fighters. We have to do GoFundMe things, and
which is not good enough.
It's not good enough. It's not good enough, and I think with all the money that's being made, everybody would benefit from that, and you never know what the future is going to hold. You know what damage you might suffer, and I think you can look even here in the UK of some of the great champions who've ended up on the street, you know, and with brain damage and stuff, and nowhere to turn, homeless and nowhere to turn, and that's not right. We make enough, we generate enough money in this sport. The promoters do, the television pays it, that there should be something for fighters.
You're right. Hopefully there's more, there's enough passionate people like you and me to turn it around. People like Teddy. All I'll say quick, I mean, the sport's not organised. If you had the Josh Taylor fight recently, I mean, this is the only sport where they don't punish these officials.
Well, I just saw a release that said they've downgraded Johnny and Lewis.
I saw that, but that doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't. But you know what it does mean is that you're saying he was wrong. So they screwed Cattrall. You know, that's what you're saying. So,
yeah. So you've messed up that young man's life.
Career. That's right.
I mean, now the amount of money he's lost, boy.
Yeah, that's right. And no one's accountable for that. I don't have an easy answer for that. Yeah. The only thing I can see, and I saw Robin Smith made a comment about this, you know, maybe we need more than 3 judges watching a fight. You know, maybe it should be a panel of 15 different people watching a fight who are scoring this and coming to a conclusion. I don't know what the answer would be or what the recipe would be to make that right. But it seems to me that 3 people holding the destiny of 2 men's hand in their hand, watching a fight on no specific criteria of how to score it. They just under their own impression of who they feel is winning and what they deem as winning the round, with no accountability. Just doesn't sit right with me. You know, it just seems a little bit wrong. You know, it just seems a little wrong that you do that and nobody can fix it. There's no way to appeal it, no way to say, hey, this is wrong, no way to force them to justify what they saw, no record kept of judges, how they score fights, because sometimes if you look at fights, you'll get sometimes identical scores, 115, 113, you know, or you get those scores. But when you look at the actual scorecards, they don't agree on the rounds that they're giving. The final points are similar, but they don't agree on the rounds. So that makes you wonder, you know,
what are they watching?
It's just whatever. Everything is so close, you're just giving it to whoever. And the fact that they turn around and say, oh, you can't score even rounds. Why not? Well, are you telling me it can't be even? How can it not? You have a first round where 2 guys really don't do anything.
Yeah.
Is scored 10-9, right?
Yeah.
You have the last round, which both guys are going balls to the wall. They're smacking the shit out of each other. They're going to war in the last round. Scored 10-9. How could both rounds be worth the same points?
It can't. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Look, last thing I'll say, look, I think you should have a clear criteria on paper so we all know what we're looking for. And the other one, just get rid of these incompetent officials.
Yeah.
As someone who's trained, you've had so many years' experience. If you saw me come in the gym, I'm not bad. There's some people I can knock out, but there's some, like, you'd look at me, you'd know what my level is. So some of these judges, like, if we know their level, if you've got a history of bad results, you're fired.
Yeah,
simple.
and I don't. We keep records on fighters, but we don't keep records on officials. You know,
we should.
And how. Of course we should. Of course you should. But you know what? We're not going to solve it in this interview. I'll tell you that.
Hopefully, eventually.
I hope so.
Thanks for your time, Russ.
Oh, it was nice talking to you.
Cheers, pal.
All right.